you. Welcome to Spicer & Company. I'm Sean Spicer.
And I'm Lindsay Keith. Well, after being interrupted by chaos and violence when protesters stormed the Capitol yesterday, Congress went into a lockdown. But Sean, after our show last night, they reconvened in an undisclosed location and worked into the night until 4 a.m. this morning to certify the electors, officially making Joe Biden the president-elect. And President Trump, whose Twitter account is temporarily suspended still, called for a peaceful transition in a statement through White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Communications Dan Scavino, saying this, quote, "Even though I totally disagree with the outcome of the election and the facts bear me out, nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. I've always said we would continue our fight to ensure that only legal votes were counted. While this represents the end of the greatest first term in presidential history, it's only the beginning of the fight to make America great again." End of his quote, Sean.
Yeah, we talked about this a little at the beginning of last show, but I did not see these past 24 hours coming. We just had a press briefing from Kayleigh McEnany that lasted a total of 1 minute and 10 seconds. Yeah. I have not done the timing. I'm not sure if that's longer or shorter than my first entourage out there in the press. But she basically just read a quick statement from the president and then adjourned without taking questions. It's been a crazy day, though. And you saw the House come back in, the Senate come back in. And even though they did go through some of those motions, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz objected to the electors in Georgia and Pennsylvania. It was not the long, drawn-out process that we had anticipated.
Yeah, that's right. You know, as Alan Dershowitz said in our show yesterday, I think it was very meaningful and the right thing to do that they reconvened to have a civil discussion on the floor as we anticipated, and to see that go on reminds you of what America stands for and that we will not be harassed by this type of behavior.
Yeah, it was symbolic. It was important. But, you know, the thing that was interesting is that there was a lot of talk in the aftermath of this about the security issues that existed. The idea that knowing that a joint session was meeting, proper security precautions were clearly not put in place. Yeah. The House Sergeant at Arms, that's the person in each of the chambers that's oversees security, has resigned. And Chuck Schumer in the Senate says he's going to fire the Senate Sergeant at Arms. They each obviously oversee the security in their respective chambers. But this was a big security failure as well.
Yeah, it was. And people are going to continue to look into why that actually happened and the breakdown of it.
Yeah, there's a lot that has to get broken down in terms of who led this, who was there, all of this. There's going to be plenty of time to break all this down. And while many lawmakers evacuated yesterday, our first guest actually stayed behind on the House floor and helped Capitol Police defend the House chamber. Joining us now is Texas Congressman Ronny Jackson. Congressman, I've called you Admiral, Doctor. This is the first time I get to actually call you Congressman, so congratulations officially. Obviously, it's a much more somber occasion than we're used to talking about. So tell me, first of all, what yesterday was like for you.
Well, thanks, Sean. I appreciate you guys having me. I mean, yesterday, I don't know how to describe it other than to say that it was absolutely insane. I mean, I, like you, did not see this coming. I went downtown where the rally was at on the Ellipse much earlier in the day before the president came out and spoke and everything. There were thousands and thousands of supporters down there with Trump flags and hats and everything. Everybody was just, getting along in a great mood. Everybody was friendly. I walked through the crowds to get to and from there. It looked like it was just a really great, I guess, support rally like the ones we've seen President Trump have so many times. And then I retired back. I went back to the House because we were about to get on the floor and start voting. We got back there. Senate came in. We started the joint session. And then, there was some opposition to the first state, which was Arizona. And they retired to the Senate. We stayed in the House chamber. We started debating. Maybe 5 or 6 people had spoke at that point, and things were going fine. And then all of a sudden, let me just start by saying earlier in the day, there had been a couple of bomb threats in some of the House office buildings, and they'd been evacuated and then resettled and then evacuated. But, that kind of stuff happens all the time. Anybody can pick the phone up and call in a bomb threat, and they do that just to disrupt stuff. So nobody, thought too much about that. And then we were sitting there going through this debate process, and all of a sudden, the Capitol Police come into the chamber, and they're making all kinds of noise. And then all of a sudden, you can just hear them locking the doors. Click, 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 click. They're locking all the doors, and they post themselves inside. So one of the other members tells me, like, oh, there must be a bomb threat. Well, I knew immediately. You and I have been around the White House for a long time and know how the security worked and everything. And just common sense says, hey, if there's a bomb threat, they're probably not locking us in the chamber and posting armed people on the inside with us. This is something else. And I knew right away that there must be somebody inside the Capitol wasn't supposed to be in there. So they said, hey, look, we're going to stop for a minute. Everybody just keep your seats. We're going to figure out what's going on. Leadership was getting briefed by Capitol Police, the few that were in there with us, to kind of figure out what was happening. Then all of a sudden, you could hear this like boom, 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 right? And you could hear some yelling and stuff, and they're like, everybody get the gas mask, get your gas mask out and prepare to don your gas mask. There's tear gas being deployed in the house. We may have to evacuate, and we're going to go through an area that's been gassed. That's when I knew, like, wow, there's not just somebody in that. There's more than one person in here, and that's when it really started to get real. So everybody got their gas masks out. Nobody actually donned them, but we took them out of the packages. Everybody was ready to put them on. Everybody was kind of getting apprehensive about what's going on here. You could hear lots of yelling. You could start smelling a little bit of the tear gas. You could still hear the boom from the tear gas cartridges going off. And then all of a sudden, there was just intense pounding on a couple of the doors, and people were trying to break the door down. They had locked the doors, but they weren't just pushing or knocking on the doors. They were throwing themselves in the doors. The doors were buckling. So at that point, everybody just kind of started getting toward the other side of the chamber, which was over near the speaker's lobby. And I was already in the back. So there were a couple of Secret Service agents there, and they said, hey, give us a hand. So we started grabbing furniture, and we drug furniture and piled furniture in front of the doors, big cabinets and stuff. We were piling as much stuff in front of the doors as we could. And at that point, people said, well, why did you stand there? And there was 4 or 5 of us there, some of the Texas delegation that were back there together. We stood there in front of the door just waiting for them to come in. They said, why would you do that? And I said, well, honestly, it was just fight or flight, right? That's what kicks in. And you looked around and there was nowhere to go. So flight wasn't an option. So we just thought to ourselves, like, they're about to come in here. What can we defend ourselves with? So we started breaking up some of the furniture. We took some of the wooden furniture, started breaking the legs off of it to use as weapons. And all of us had a piece of furniture, a wooden leg, that we had taken. And we were standing there, and we just got right in the door where they were about to come through. And we were standing there hoping if they came in that we could persuade them to turn around, or we could keep them from coming in, or we could make a pathway for us to get out. About that time, I had bent over away from the glass to knock a piece of wood off that was on the bottom of the stick I had. And I heard like pop, 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 and the glass just started shattering everywhere right next to my head. And I don't know if it was rounds coming through. I honestly don't know. I'm confident that it probably was. Some projectiles were coming through the window, knocking the glass out. And at that point, that's when the Capitol Police, the few that were in there with us, decided it was better off for us to take our chances and go out the other side, because none of us knew where they were at. They were all over the house. So they were trying to keep us there because they didn't know, what routes were clear. But they decided at that point it was better to take the chance, get us out of there, try to get us to another secure place. And that's what they did. They moved us out the backside, took us to a secure location, and that's where we stayed.
Let me ask you, you've served extensively in the military. You've been on the battlefield. Have you seen anything like it?
Just in Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, that's the kind of stuff.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. You don't say that. You don't compare. I mean, I don't see you say this. I've never heard in the sentence Afghanistan, Iraq, U.S. House floor.
Absolutely. And that's what was so horrible about yesterday, was that is not supposed to happen in this country. People, brave Americans, have died in Iraq and Afghanistan. Sean, you and I are in the military. We know this, to protect protect the ability for us to meet on the floor of the House and have civil debate about issues. And that was taken away from us yesterday. That should not happen in this country, and it dang sure shouldn't happen in the U.S. Capitol.
Can I ask you one quick question? I got a minute left. Do you think, based on yesterday, that people on the left in particular might rethink these calls to defund the police after seeing the heroic action of law enforcement to run towards danger and to put themselves in harm's way and protect members of Congress?
Look, I would hope so, Sean. There were some really brave Capitol Police officers there yesterday that sacrificed themselves, to take care of us. Some of them went to the hospital with serious injuries, and they were doing that to defend not just members of Congress, but everybody else that worked in that building. I hope that the lawmakers that were there on the other side of the aisle saw that. They backed that rhetoric down. But I'm going to tell you, I am worried about where we're going. Yes. I think that they think the fact that they have the Senate now and the House, they took this as a mandate, and it was not a mandate. They barely squeaked by. And I think personally that was, with the help of some of the election fraud that was out there. But they're going to take this as a mandate, and I think they're going to take their far left social agenda and run with it. So we'll see where this goes. I hope that they rethink some of this stuff, but only time will tell.
I'm equally concerned, but more importantly, I'm glad you're safe. I want to thank you again for, you served this country in the military for so long. You served the president in the White House, and now you're serving in Congress. And clearly, you continue to fight for the safety of others. So, Admiral, Doctor, Congressman Ronny Jackson, thank you for joining us, and I'm glad to hear you're safe.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.